Earth 2 Annual Number 1, written by James Robinson, art by Cafu and Julius Gopez. So this kind of feels like setup for the next arc. It definitely doesn't come out of the last one. So we pick up on a jet holding Al Pratt, who is aka the Atom, and they're flying to Cambodia, where there's some city called Phnom Penh. And they're going there for whatever reason. And Al's kind of out of it. He's just like thinking about his past. It's basically just a backdoor origin story where they were fighting 5 years ago. A huge explosion with like nukes came off and all of his crew got atomized except for him. And so he's brought in for some testing. They go crazy hard on that. And then his therapist is like, okay, well, Sergeant Pratt, you somehow survived a nuke and nobody can figure out why. But I'm your psychiatrist and I just want to know, are you feeling okay? Are you happy? Can you smile for me? And he's just like, no, because like all I can think of is my friends dying around me. And he gets some PTSD. He freaks out and he grows to a massive size, crashing through the building. And so then we see more time skips happen of him fighting some parademons and whatnot out in the outskirts of like Russia. And he's back with the therapist and just be like, well, we still don't know why that happens, but now you can grow to supersize and you also have atomic punches, and we still have just no explanation. So, again, I'm your therapist. And she also points out, like, by the way, your clothes grow with you? What's that about? But either way, are you happy? And he's just like, happy? Nah, I wouldn't say happy, but like, I'm happier. I realize I don't need to have survivor's guilt as much, but I do still feel responsible. Like, maybe that's the wrong word. I don't know. I feel like I have a job to do, and I need to do it in honor of them. So at that point, just like, well, yeah, no, and congratulations on your promotion. You go out there fighting with Captain Steel, which we did see during one of the flashbacks here. And he's just like, yeah, no, Captain Steel, he's great. He's super smart and whatnot. And the more I learn how much more I still need to learn. And he's like, well, yeah, that's progress. So anyway, back in the present day, he's still just thinking about it. They arrive at Phnom Penh, and he's like, all right, let me get my clothes on. And we see him put on like stereotypical tourist gear. He's trying to blend in to this place, which is apparently just the seediest place in the world. Like, they sell all this technology from Apocalypse and also World Army stuff, and everyone's just kind of totally evil here. And he goes around asking for a guy named Henry Roy, saying that he's got information for him. And as he asks around, getting the name out there, he eventually gets kidnapped by some people. And he's like, oh, around this time I always ask myself the same thing. Why didn't they send Captain Steel instead? Then we get an interlude where Captain Steel is talking to Commander Khan, and Khan's like, hey, what do you know about the fire pits? And he's just like, they were made by Terry Sloan, and they like have varying degrees of awfulness about them. And Khan's like, yep, nope, that's pretty much it. Sometimes you can have a city built pretty much right on top of one and it won't cause any issues. Other ones, you can't get within 100 miles of it. Like, we don't understand anything about the fire pits. So that's an issue. And Captain Steele's like, okay, so you want me to go investigate one of the fire pits? He's like, well, kind of. We want to send you into a fire pit. And that's the end of the interlude. So then we go back to Pratt, who's been captured. And they're punching him, torturing him, saying, like, what do you want with Roy? And he's just like, I just want to give him some information. And in the shadows, we see a very bat-like silhouette. And he's just like, yeah, no, I'm only going to give the info to him because otherwise one of you guys is going to take credit for it and I miss out on my payday. And he's like, fine, all right, whatever. And one of the guys decloaks, and turns out it is this businessman named Henry Roy. And he's like, all right, so we've already scanned you. You don't have any communication stuff on you. You don't have any weapons. You're not a threat. So what do you want to tell me? And it's just like, I wanted to tell you that the World Army knows where you are. And he's like, oh, how do they know that? And it's like, your own son sold you out. And he's like, oh, okay, well, thanks for the info, but why should I pay you for it? And he's like, oh, I don't care if you pay me for it. You were talking before about the World Army. I am the World Army. And then all of a sudden he grows up to his big size. And all of the henchmen around have like Apocalypse tech, so they are firing on Adam, and it seems like it does a little bit, but it's really not taking him down. He uses his punches to throw down some big stuff. And then all of a sudden, Henry Roy has jumped himself into a mech. And he has a full-on, like, kaiju battle with Adam. And they just start blasting their way out of buildings, like, jumping over them, attacking each other. We see some of the henchmen also have some high-tech armor. And it's enough to basically disorient Adam for a while, to which we then see this new Batman, whose secondary color is red, is blasting out some explosives to take out the goons. And Adam doesn't see Batman, but he's just like, all right, well, those goons are no longer after me. Time to focus on the mission. And so he's leaping over buildings, chasing after Henry, and finally in the end he gets him, tackles him to the ground. And as he does so, we hear a voice from the side. It is Major Sonia Sato from the World Army, who I guess we've seen before. They say that we have. I don't remember her. But regardless, they're like, oh, what are you here for? Here to clean up after me? And Sonia's like, I am your superior officer, thank you very much. But no, Steppenwolf is back. He's in Durain, so we've got kind of a thing going on. So he shrinks back down. He goes to talk to Sonya. And basically they're saying they're launching back up the Heroes Initiative. Which, yes, that is just the Avengers. It's said the exact same way. And he's just like, look, if that's what the World Army wants to do, I'm happy to serve. But, like, also, isn't Terry Sloan the one who's in charge of that? And he's just like, no. He's just in charge of the science stuff. Like, I'm going to be the one in charge of the rest. I'm in charge of training and overseeing the cadets. So are you in? And he's just like, if that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing. I'm down. So at that point, Henry Roy Jr., the son who turned in his father, steps up and just being like, yeah, my dad's a dick, but I did what I knew had to be right. And at that point, Adam's like, okay, but like, why should I care? Why is he here? It's like, well, it turns out Henry Roy Jr. here has always had these really, really bad headaches that have been like debilitating. And World Army scientists think that maybe, just maybe, he's got kind of like a little bit of the superpowers. So we're just going to take him in and we're just going to see if that moral compass is worth anything. So at that point, he's like, yeah, no, I want to atone for what my dad did. So at that point, we then cut over to Batman, who is watching over all this. And mind you, this isn't the original Batman, but we don't know what Batman this is. And he says, 72 hours later, I'm fighting against Mr. Icicle, real name Jaime Encana, who got some powers from Kanto, quote unquote, the assassin of Apocalypse. And we see he has ice powers. Batman's able to fight against it. He takes out Icicle and tackles him on the ground. And he's just like, okay, here's the thing. There's some rumors that Kanto is... back during the war, Kanto gave powers to like certain people and said like, you are my assassins, go for it. Rumor is that he's calling back in these markers, and if he's doing so, that means Apocalypse is making a move. And he grabs Icicle and says like, speak, what's going on? And he's just like, oh, Kanto told us to prepare, that's all he said, I swear. And Batman threatens him a little bit more, and he says, okay, fine, there was also a thing about Hawkgirl, like apparently Hawkgirl is going to be a threat, but I don't know what that's about. And Batman seemingly shoots him like point blank, like he kills him and says like, all right, Steppenwolf's kind of been on his own thing because he got abandoned here on Earth. He's not with Apocalypse anymore. But if Kanto's doing something, that means Apocalypse is still active. So I got to track down Hawkgirl and see what's up. Then we cut to Gotham City for the epilogue, and we see Barda and Mr. Miracle are there, and they're just like chasing down these horrific mutated monsters. Barda is getting some sort of cheap thrills out of killing them. Meanwhile, Mr. Miracle's like, this is kind of stupid. Like, you kind of gross me out, Barda. And Barda's like, oh, I'm sorry. Is this too much for you? And he's just like, no, but like, maybe. Regardless, we got to find this Batman guy. Like, that's the whole reason we're here. It says, it's nice to be free, obviously. I'm certainly not eager to have Steppenwolf's shackles back on me again. But we can't stay here any longer. What if the World Army sees us? And then all of a sudden, Barda's tied up in a lasso. And we see, I think her name was Fury? The one who is like Wonder Woman's daughter has captured Barda, saying like, oh, I'd say the World Army's the least of your worries. So 3 separate plots going on here. In terms of the Atom and the Heroes Initiative, I like it. It sounds like the sort of thing that we were always kind of building up to, is that, okay, the World Army is preparing for the return of Steppenwolf. The Batman arc, good mystery setting up in who is this Batman. He's clearly still got the detective vibe to him. He's going around getting clues, finding out that Steppenwolf may not be the biggest threat here, which leads into a lot more story possibilities down the road. And then you got whatever the hell Mr. Miracle and Barda are doing, which was hinted at before. That was already covered that this was going to be coming up. But it's weird knowing what I know about Barda and Miracle 10 years down the road of where they are in the DC universe, because they are still new gods, which means these should still be the only ones in the multiverse. So we'll see how that shakes out. It's a bit strange, but I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I like the way they've done characterizations for pretty much everyone else here, so I'm willing to give it that little extra hope for it. So I'm going to say that this is a 7.5. It doesn't quite scratch that 8. It's good, but not great. But it is still a decent story. It's got its own stuff going on, but it does feel more like setup for the arc that's about to happen rather than being its own individual story. So, yeah, 7.5.